That's could be a little delay since I'm coming.
Lead in.
Hello, Tim.
Hello.
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Very, very good. We just wanted to introduce ourselves first to you. First, we'd like to thank you so much for coming in today and making sure that we were here on time for our interview. But we just wanted to introduce ourselves before we get started with our interview today. So my name is Kristen Cooper, and I'm one of the assistant principals here. I'm very pleased to see you.
I'm Robert Renshaw, also an assistant principal here.
And I'm Jimmy Pagel, graduation coach.
Nice to meet you.
So what we're going to do, as we often do with our interviews, is we're just going to go through a rotating basis. We're going to ask you several questions, and we will be marking things down on our sheet just so that you won't be alarmed. What we'll be doing, taking notes so that we can discuss afterwards. And there may be some times where we may ask a question and another person on our panel, one of the other APs, may ask you another question, or Jimmy, who's our graduation coach. But if you have any clarification that you need as we're going through, don't hesitate to ask. If you need us to explain a question a little bit better for you, you're more than welcome to do that. All right, so I'm going to begin by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Middletown, New York. Moved to Georgia when I was about 5 years old with my family. Started school in a small town. Finished high school all the way in the same place, same school system, actually the same school. Ended up graduated from one of the local universities, the University of West Georgia, and moved into the field of teaching. My first job was in Douglas County at Alexander High School. Spent the last 5 years at Temple High School, trying to move to you guys.
Thank you.
And what instructional strategies would you use that you believe will yield the best student learning results?
Well, I mean, for me in the field of health and PE, it's all about teaching fundamentals, about whatever activity we're doing for the day, whether it's weightlifting activity, making sure that students are meeting the percentages that we're setting over the course of the weeks and months, and it's a lot of differentiation within the weightlifting context, and that you build a workout plan for each individual student. So individual students at different places, and so on and so forth. With that, as is with any of the activities that we would be working on in the class, if we're teaching how to shoot basketball, there are going to be different people that are at different levels of that, so it's kind of differentiate how you're instructing in the PE area.
Good. All right, Tim.
What does a grade represent to you? And what is your understanding of mastery over time?
Well, for me, grades are really nothing but a number. I'm more about trying to see that the student has mastered the content. I think we're moving definitely in this day and age to a more performance-based grade that shows whether or not the student has mastered the concept. So, I mean, if my goal for a student in a weightlifting class is to move 20% from where he's at right now, if he moves 20%, then he's mastered what we went out and tried to accomplish as far as that's concerned. It's unfortunate when at the end of the marking period, you have to assess where the student's at with an A, B, C, or D or F right now. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but more for me about mastery of what we've set out to try and get done with that individual workout plan for the student.
Tim, what do you feel is a correlation between teaching and relationship building?
Can't teach them if you don't build a relationship. And that's across any curriculum. Makes no difference what it is. If the student doesn't feel like he's welcome in the classroom, it's not a positive atmosphere, one that they want to come into day in and day out, it's going to be very difficult to reach them as a whole.
Tell us about a time when you were a member of a maybe a high-functioning team or committee? And what made it successful? And what roles did you have contributing to that team?
At every position I've held, I've been a member of the school leadership team. Has to be a team-oriented, functioning team where everybody feels very appreciated and also feels like they have an opportunity to put in a lot of say-so. As far as what's going on, the biggest piece of that for me is that there has to be a structure in place. And it's important that that structure is in place so that people know, what and how the meeting's going to function. You have to take into consideration the time constraints that all those people that are coming to the table with. The most positive thing out of that's when you can stay on, on task and on target with what your goals are for there. The least successful part and the teams that I've been on are those that don't function underneath those constraints that value time for everybody that is involved. Don't have agendas, those types of things.
All right, Tim. With regards to PE, what do you feel is the most difficult concept to teach? What strategies have you used to help students master that concept in the past?
Most difficult concept is to have the students understand why they're doing what they're doing in PE. Our society has become a very sedentary society overall, and a lot of the students nowadays do not want to help for PE class because we give it to them during the daytime or second period. They don't want to come in there and get hot and sweaty and then have to go back to the rest of their classes for the rest of the day. And just the whole way that we are instructing students now by making them sit in the room for 55 minutes to an hour and a half or whatever type of schedule you're following, just doesn't present itself to the student as far as seeing why they're involved in PE. I would say that half of the students that are in high schools right now could care less about being in a PE class. If they're not an athlete, they're not workoutaholics, they would rather not be in it. That's what I feel about the most challenging part is just the willingness of the students to be in participation with the class. A lot of times PE tends to be the dumping ground for students that don't know where they need to put, and they don't fulfill the requirements and required courses that they need, and they don't want to be there to begin with, so that makes it difficult to engage them at times.
So Tim, what have you found that you've done to try to remedy that when students are concerned about the reason? What have you done?
Well, we open up every class with statistics as far as obesity is going on in the United States and the need for how important it is that you stay physically active is the first approach that we take with. Of course, that doesn't reach every student. And from there, we try to make sure that we show them as many different opportunities and just have a variety of activities. We find something that is going to spark an interest from every kid at some point in time. This kid may not enjoy participating in the dodgeball, but he may really enjoy doing the volleyball. You just got to find something that sparks their interest.
And I know that when it comes to phys ed, you have to give them different types of assessments. So what type of assessments would you give formatively and summatively?
Well, if we're teaching a skill, obviously it's a kinesthetic skill that we're teaching. That's a definite formative and summative assessment, I believe. Whether or not the kid can, show you what they learned as far as if it's form shooting drill or proper technique for squats. It's a constant formative and summative assessment in PE. You got to make sure that you're that they have the basis down so that they don't, it's a safety issue if they hurt themselves, so on and so forth, by not doing something properly. So we're constantly doing those formative summative assessments. Of course, we also have cumulative, assessments at the end of teaching, a unit, just to kind of make sure that we have learned the activity and can also can show that you've learned that activity by answering questions related to whatever you're talking about for the unit.
What is your classroom management style? And can you explain to us why some teachers have good classroom management and some do not in your opinion?
Well, when it comes to classroom management, I have a philosophy of 4 F's. And so I'm going to be firm, I'm going to be fair, teach you fundamentals, what I expect, and just deal with those first 3 first. We'll get to number 4, which is fun. It's important that you're firm, that you're consistent. And I think if you're firm and you're consistent, then that kind of equates and gets the students to understand that you are a fair teacher. That you are not picking your favorites and letting this guy get away with this and this guy get away with that. I teach them the fundamentals of what you expect every day, coming into the classroom, coming into the gym, wherever we're at. It kind of takes care of 1 and 2. You don't have as many issues with the students thinking that you're not being fair, and so on and so forth. And then bottom line, if you can make the class fun, any class fun, you gotta keep them engaged, and that kind of encompasses all the other 3.
We like to expect all our faculty members to get involved in the school. What ways do you think you could contribute to our school culture and our school community?
Just a very positive attitude. I will do anything that you need. I've coached every sport that there is to coach, from boys and girls basketball to cross country, baseball, football. I enjoy coaching it year round. You're not going to have any issues with. If something needs to be done, I'll do it. I think you're definitely going to get somebody who's very enthusiastic in what they do. I think that I will be able to provide a very positive climate for all your students, and also gauge that with being a very safe climate. Very articulate, know the ins and outs about each one of the sports and what to look at to make sure that the students are doing what they need to do to make sure they're preventing injuries and so on and so forth. I'm very articulate with the GHSA rules and bylaws and regulations in all the athletic areas. I spent time as assistant athletic director. I've done multiple clubs and sponsored multiple clubs. I stay involved. I live at the school.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. When you think about curriculum, whether you have to master it or you have to cover it, what do you think is more important?
Master or cover? Well, I think you got to find the balance. From the student perspective, obviously the goal is that we want them to have mastered the curriculum. From a guideline standpoint, from the county office, from the state level, there is a certain level of material that they expect to be covered over a certain amount of time. I believe it's important that you got to find that balance. And if the students aren't mastering the content, then there are times that you're going to have to deviate from what the expectation of getting covered is. It makes no sense for me to just sit there and go through 3 weeks of doing this, 3 weeks of doing this, 3 weeks of doing this, and the kids aren't getting anything from the out of it. Very important, in my opinion, that you find a balance. I don't believe that, you can sacrifice what you have to get the majority of the students through in order to make sure that every single student masters that. It's always a balance.
How do you know when students have learned the material that you taught? And how do you respond when you see that there's some students that aren't quite getting that material?
Well, in Health B, it's pretty obvious if they've gotten it or not. They can show me that they mastered it, whether, like we were talking about earlier, if they can perform the technique of a squat. And, you know, I mean, it's just pretty obvious. I can give them feedback and show them, you know, where they need to be, feet aren't properly spaced, or back's not aligned the way it needs to be, and show them, you know, if you don't fix this or correct this, you can possibly cause an injury, so on and so forth from that. For those that aren't, because PE is so kinesthetic, it's just multiple opportunities to show that they can master that concept. And, you know, I mean, everybody's not going to make a three-point jump shot, but they can at least do the process correctly and show me that they can, you know, can follow the technique. And if they can follow the technique, it's more about, you know, mastery of the technique than making the shot. And, you know, it carries over in every other sport also. He's very technical.
At our school, we like to all, you know, with the APs and the principal and myself, we like to go into the classrooms and all that and see how, you know, the students are engaged and all the teachers and just engaging with the students. If we walked into your class, what would we see?
We see very organized structure, high expectations for every student. We'll see standards-based classrooms being used in PE, which a lot of places you go, we actually see that going on. You will also see my PE classes doing everything that we possibly can to increase test scores, whether it be writing activities that we're doing, whether it be helping with the math scores by calculating percentage of weight loss and body mass index, you know, factoring in any of those types of things. We will do anything that we need to do to help raise overall test scores in the school. And, you know, I mean, I think it's everybody's job to make sure that ultimately at the end of the year that the school passes AYP, makes AYP, it's everybody can pull together to come up with techniques that we can do to help master that.
And when you think about a classroom, there's many different types of students. You could have ESOL students in there, special ed students, students of different races, different modalities. What do you think is important with the strategies that you would employ to make sure that that student achievement is achieved?
Well, I mean, bottom line, even in PE, you're going to have students that are further along than others as far as, you know, techniques and getting things, you know, where they need to be. You group those students based on their ability. And, you know, it may be that I've got this group over here that doesn't need to be working on technique as much, and, you know, they start moving into actually, you know, playing the game of basketball. This group here, we may be working on just fundamental drills, and this group over here, we may be, you know, teaching them how to lace up their shoes and, you know, and just baby step them along the way. Ultimately, we're looking for one thing, and that's that they can, you know, participate and show the technique and use that technique. But, you know, every student's not coming to you with the same thing, and, you know, you gotta understand that coming into it, and ultimately you know where you want them to be, and each student's going to get there at a different pace at times, and you gotta make arrangements for that.
Going along with that same thought is maybe describe an approach that you use to differentiate instruction for maybe a particular student or a group of students. Can you think of some examples that you had there?
Yeah, well, one example I started talking about just a minute ago was, you know, something we had last year with basketball. I just remember a specific period, you know, we had a lot of the basketball team was in that particular PE class. And so what they will do is actually use that time to practice and go over, you know, some of the plays that coach was trying to implement, which just happened to be me also, so that kind of made it a little easier. So while they were working on that, you know, I had another group over here where we were teaching them form, shot, technique, those types of things. And then we had another group that really were just looking at basketball background knowledge and those types of things with one of the paraprofessionals that was assigned to me during that class period. So, you know, I understand the concept of differentiation and the importance, you know, from English all the way through elective classes such as PE and business courses and so on and so forth.
What is an acceptable failure rate to you?
For PE, 0. 0.
What about in other classes?
Acceptable failure rate. Ooh, boy, I tell you, that's you know, we're here for one reason, that's to make sure the students get an education. The bottom line, you're going to have some students that come to you that just will not do. I would love to see the failure rate be 0. I take an approach at seeing that failure rate be 0, but I can't, you know, I can't ever see a situation in which it's going to be 0 for everybody. Everybody doesn't take the same mentality that I do as a teacher into the classroom. So if you're talking about what my acceptable rate is 0. You know, if you're talking about what's actually, in most cases, going to happen, it's going to be probably 10% of the population. That's not going to pass. It's unfortunate. You know, I feel like we need to do everything that we possibly can and exhaust every resource that we have available to us to try and make sure that that 10% does not be left out. You know, that's just my opinion on it.
Now, how long have you been in education?
This will be my 7th year.
7 years. So I know within those 7 years, you've come across a parent who may have been at least a little irate in one of those 7 years. So if you can think back to one of those times, how did you handle that issue, or how do you think you would have been able to handle an issue of that nature that's a discipline issue?
Well, I had an opportunity, a lot more opportunities than just your average teacher to come in contact with parents with the extensive coaching background that I have. And you know, I'm gonna take more from the perspective of the coach on this question, if that's okay. Because I think that we obviously have an opportunity to deal with more irate parents in the coaching realm than more so than just your average classroom teacher. Just one time I remember we had a scenario where the parent really felt like their students had been playing more and starting over some of the other students that were on the team. And it was one of those scenarios where as a coach, you pretty much take a standpoint, well, I'm the one that dictates the playing time, and if your student's performing well in practice, then his playing time's going to increase. Initially that was a concern. The parent didn't really receive that real well. And so then what I asked him to do was, that I was going to give him another opportunity in practice and view what was going on and see. I'm all about earning playing time. I'm going to put the best players I have out there to make sure that we have the best opportunity to come out and perform well. And I just pointed out a few things to her that just wasn't getting it done in practice. His work ethic wasn't where it needed to be. Eventually we ended up working things out as far as our relationship together, but it took a while and it took a lot of commentary from me back and forth with her to have her understand that I would love for her student to be on the team, but she's going to have to understand that me as the coach, the principal's put me in charge here. It's my job to make sure that I put out a good product on the floor, that he just was not factoring into that at this point in time. I pointed out quite a few things to her. He's just a sophomore, and this is a varsity team, and he's going to have plenty of opportunities in the future to contribute at a higher level, but right now was not that time.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit, talk a little bit about professional development. Maybe what's a professional book that maybe has impacted your teaching, or maybe even some seminar or something you went through that impacted you?
There's a book out there, You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me. It's 100% life-changing book for any educator, I do believe. The bottom line is if you do not build relationships with the students, players that you coach, students are looking for somebody that will build that relationship, go the extra mile with them, and show them that they care. They have no idea what kind of background they're coming from. They have no idea, where they've been or where they're going or what they go home to in the evening. And this book really brings that to the forefront. And I can't see anybody not reading that book and having a different outlook on education.
That's a great question.
Okay, so Tim, we've come to the end of our interview, and we always ask our interviewees if they have any questions. So do you have any questions for us?
I do. What's the timeline like on the position?
Well, right now, we're conducting a panel. We're going to report back to the principal and kind of go through the candidates we have, trying to narrow the field, and then she's going to call in some more, I guess you'd say, the last cut, if you will, from the coaching perspective, and talk with you again. And then we just started these, so I think we've got a couple of weeks before we get to that point. So anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe a month before we actually know exactly what's going to happen.
All right. What are the expectations from the administration as far as extracurricular activities and duties and those types of things?
We like all our teachers to get involved outside the classroom because our school and us as individuals believe that the students, when they see their teachers outside the classroom at events or whatnot, builds those relationships where in times of distress or tough situations, the student knows that, well, this teacher does care about her kids because she's at these extracurricular activities, that that relationship's there and they can hopefully resolve those issues because of that meaningful relationship that's been developed. So we do expect our teachers to get involved and participate in extracurricular activities, coaching, club sponsorship.
What type of candidate is the administration looking for in this position?
One thing that we find that's really important, as you've stated, is relationship. That's a really big thing that we're doing. We're piloting a new program at our school that has to do with positive behavior support that goes along with that idea of relationships. So that was one of the major things that we're looking for. The normal things as well as an employee, someone who comes to work punctual, someone who cares about what they do, and also someone that's really able to get along with their peers is another key. It goes without saying, knowing the curriculum, knowing how to seek information for the curriculum also is very key as well. But all of those pieces that fit together are just something that a lot of things should go together.
Well, and I think someone that's enthusiastic, passionate about their good job, that's some of the things that we're trying to look for.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
And we appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Not bleeding.
Oh, man.